What's up, guys? Realized I've been slacking on putting out some new content. I actually have a lot of stuff I'd like to put out. I'm slacking. So without further ado, this is kind of gonna be a mix of showing you guys my work in progress on my Return of the Jedi V2 build, but it's also kind of gonna be a review on the Saberforge Prodigal Son, which is what this is actually based on, believe it or not. So before I kind of started the conversion, I got to play around with it a little bit as a stock Prodigal Son, and so that mixed with kind of how it sits now, I'm just going to give a few kind of quick thoughts, initial impressions. I know months and months and months ago somebody actually requested, I think I had asked, what sabers are you guys kind of interested in seeing? That was one that was suggested, and my response was that it was very much on my want list. And I ended up getting one. I ended up actually getting one that had just a few issues. It was missing the D-ring, kind of scratched up. So I ended up getting a really good deal on it, which was perfect because I knew that I wanted to do kind of a custom build. I had this extra clamp that was left over from a Parks Graflex 2.0 kit, and I'm going to do another video showing you guys where that kind of Graflex is now. I've done a lot of accuracy mods to it. So anyway, I had the extra clamp left over from that. So anyway, first, before I go into kind of talking about the V2, initial impressions of the Saberforge Prodigal Son, because obviously when I got it, it had the clamp box mounted here. I've actually since sold it to kind of fund this build, so I don't have it to show you. But anyway, overall, I really like the saber. I know that as far as kind of the Luke Return of the Jedi styled hilts, you've essentially got Ultra Sabers has the Archon. I'm not really sure how you're not supposed to pronounce it, but I think you all know what I'm talking about, or if you don't, it's like Archon, I believe is how they spell it. It's essentially a thin neck. I actually have the emitter section from that, and because it's the modular hilt system compatible, I actually used an Ultra Sabers Archon emitter on a custom Saber Shop modular hilt system body. So I've got a little experience with that. Anyway, Ultra Sabers has that version. You've got the Prodigal Son, and then I know Vader's Vault just released their Hero Saber. I can't recall the name of the company that's making it for them. But anyway, when they originally released it a couple months ago, the big claim was that it was the most realistic Hero Saber that you could buy. And so I know that I just, for curiosity's sake, did kind of a comparison side-by-side picture of the Prodigal Son and Vader's Vault's Hero. And yes, without a doubt, the Vader's Vault is significantly more accurate, but when you look at the price difference, I mean, okay, considering if you buy a Prodigal Son with all the fixings versus the Vader's Vault, fully loaded, you're talking, $500 versus, maybe $800 or $900, depending on what options you get. Maybe it's a little less for the Vader Vault. I kind of built it how I would have wanted it, knowing just I wasn't going to buy it, but I wanted to see what it would cost. Anyway, you're talking between $500 and $1,000. You're talking a lot of money for a saber. So at that point it's a little different. But when you're talking about an empty, for $150 for a Prodigal Son, and then you build it up yourself, it's substantially cheaper, and I think that the accuracy differences are okay. From what I noticed, the big differences in accuracy, the clamp section, not this, but the stock clamp on the Prodigal Son, kind of looks like shit. It's okay for $150. I'd say it gets the job done, but essentially so my issue with it is that the brass on the sides, these strips are like brass. They come off really easily. The side black buttons are painted, and then the arrows are just kind of like engraved in and they're painted and they're just, it's not amazing. I mean, it's okay. Like something that I just want to make a point of, like pretty much my only things I could ever say critical of Saberforge, or a lot of the stuff that I would say is kind of a downfall. Like they put out so many sabers. Like my guess would be they put out more sabers than any of the other companies. Could be way off on that. This is just my off the top of my head thought. So as a result, as far as like finishing issues or consistency issues, they're just gonna be there. Is it acceptable? Not necessarily for the price you pay for some of them, but it's just like you kind of expect it at that point. So when I look at that, I'm just like, okay, that's reasonable considering that they're pumping these out and it's $150. So now on the same note of that, I really like that on the stock setup, the switch, you know, slides up for recharge and that it's got, you know, the everything housed inside it. I think it's a really clean way of doing it, but it's not 100% accurate. The other big thing as far as accuracy on this ribbing section, it's just a little off on this compared to the Vader's Vault. It's not super substantial, but it is noticeable. I mean, if you're going for accuracy, I mean, realistically, if you can shell out $500+ for a fully loaded Prodigal Son, spend the money and get the Vader's Vault. If you're talking about an empty for 150, a Nano Biscotti for 70, a chassis for 30, whatever, if you're gonna do it yourself, even if you want to leave it in the hero configuration with the box that I was just complaining about, I would say the Prodigal Son is very much worth the money. I mean, it feels awesome. It's a really cool saber to pick up and play around with. I feel like other than that, they did a pretty damn good job considering. As far as the neck section, another thing too with the Vader's Vault, they actually house the LED in the top of the emitter versus this. It runs, you can see there's kind of a reflective tape in there. You can actually see all the way through to the the bottom of it. The LED actually sits right here and it shines through. So I'm not sure how well like a Tri-Cree, something like that would actually work. I think I have, so if you look at how the Tri-Cree lens is, technically it should focus everything up, but I think it would overlap kind of where the hole is. So I may be way off because I obviously have not put a Tri-Cree in this just to test it. It may not work very well. Whereas like Saberforge, they use a setup similar to this. They use 4 dies in the center of their LEDs. I prefer to use these Cree XMLs because they're cheap and they're a 4-die red, blue, green, white. So it's really easy to do builds with them, and I think that the difference in brightness compared to a Tri-Cree is minimal. So that might be something that's a downfall to this style versus like the Vader's Vault up here. Again, you're talking price differences. How to get my coffee fixed. You're talking a pretty substantial price difference, and if you want to do it yourself, this is kind of the only way to go. I know that I think KR Sabers has a hero and I think a V2, and I know Solo's Hold has a V2, and Corbin/Parks has, I believe, a V2, and they're coming out with a hero. So I mean, there are other options. Again, price difference. The Corbin is probably going to be $225. This is $150. So anyway, I guess to kind of sum up the rant about the stock Prodigal Son, I really like it. I'm honestly very, very impressed. I was kind of at a point I wasn't sure if I really wanted to buy many more Saberforge sabers, if I kind of wanted to just try some other things, and I'm really happy with this. I almost want to buy another one just to leave stock. Something to consider, most sabers come apart right there. This one actually screws apart in the middle. So as far as custom building, it's not as straightforward as far as attaching a chassis and whatnot. So it's going to be interesting when I do a sound install. So to try not to drag this video on for too much longer, because I know that it's not fun just listening to me talk and looking at a blank saber. I really need to learn how to do some video editing again, because I hate to sound like an old man, but the last time that I did video editing was like 10 years ago in high school. So it's been a long time, and technology moves fast. Actually, if anybody's listened 10 minutes and 20 seconds into the video, it's a pain because I'm shooting this on my phone, and then I have to upload or transfer it from my phone to my computer and then upload it to YouTube. For some reason, my phone does not want to upload straight to YouTube. If anybody has any suggestions on maybe a better way to go about doing it, that would be awesome, because I really don't know where to start. I don't know anyone that really does YouTube videos or anything that could kind of point me in the right direction. So if anybody watching has any suggestions, very much open to it, because I know that sometimes it's probably really painful trying to listen to this. I know personally I'm not a huge fan of videos that are just somebody talking. Then again, it can be kind of nice because you can put it on your computer and go off and do other things and just listen to somebody rant, almost like a radio show. So anyway, my current work in progress V2, almost should split this into 2 videos, because if all you wanted to see was the work in progress, you just listen to me talk for 11 minutes. Basically paint weathering up at the emitter. What I did is I actually had the stills from the movie open, and I tried to emulate kind of the styling of the weathering on the V2. Wanawanga, Graflex D-ring. I've got the Greebly on here. This is actually just threaded in here. I've got the Graflex 2.0 clamp, Wanawanga lever, clamp card. Originally the goal was to actually put the switch in here, but because if you can see how little room there is in there, just because of the nature of it, there wasn't a lot of room for a switch. So what I ended up doing, that I'm pretty stoked with, is I actually took where there's normally a set screw, and I don't know if you can see, there you can see it, and there's actually a tactile switch right there. I have a ring that was made that I'm going to get 3D printed that will hold the tactile in place, and once I do that and it's all properly secured, I'm going to trim it down so it's a little more flush. You guys can at least see that there. So that's what it looks like. I'm really happy with how it's come out, considering the base Saber was not initially intended to be a V2, and hopefully this will eventually have a Nano Biscotti, just kind of a basic setup, green LED. I was tempted to do a blue LED and do a photon blade, but I like flash on clash too much. That's kind of day blades and the photon blade are cool, but it almost ruins it for me because I like my flash on clash. So anyway, yeah, if you've watched the video this far, I appreciate you for listening to me talk for almost 14 minutes. Give me a like if you like this. Please leave a comment if you have any suggestions on other videos, DIY videos, whatnot, that you might want to see. Hoping to kind of try and expand my channel to not just sabers, but maybe some other Star Wars related stuff. So, give it a sub and keep an eye out if you're into that kind of thing. And thanks for watching.